Hi guys, I'm beyond excited to have somebody that I absolutely love on today's episode, Bessa, and I'm just excited for you guys to hear her story and her journey through adoption. So
yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited for everyone to hear your story. To start out, you have to give us a fun fact about yourself.
Fun fact, I guess.
Just like a random fact that no one knows.
You can. Nobody knows. I feel like everybody knows something.
Yeah.
Nothing that nobody knows.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe.
What's a random fact about you?
That I have a missing knuckle.
That is so.
I think I noticed when I was like 10 years old that I was missing a knuckle on one of my hands.
That's the most random thing. That's actually
creepy.
really.
Oh no, I don't want to show them my nails. Very ugly.
No,
nails.
you're fine.
Just the knuckles.
That's so.
Yeah.
This is definitely the first time I've seen it, so it's kind of cool.
Nails.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. So let's jump right into your adoption story.
Before we do that,
yes.
I just wanted to tell you congratulations for starting this podcast.
Thank
I loved
you.
your first couple episodes.
Did it resonate with you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Your story is very powerful and inspiring, and I think it's going to get a lot of people to open up and share their story.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, and I want people to know that this is something that we've been talking about for years about starting it, and so she was like the backbone of it coming to light because we kept meeting different adopted people and we would just like share our own experiences, and the more we shared our experiences, we realized that other adoptees felt the same way, where we all had different stories, but it was interesting that there was like some type of similarity within all our stories. So so thank you for being supportive and being part of the project. So where were you adopted from, and let's start from there.
Yeah, so I was adopted from Ethiopia, of course. My family is from 4 hours away from Addis in the countryside. It's a small village. It's called Kursa. I'm from there, right?
Yeah.
That's where I'm from.
And how many tell us about your family, like how many siblings?
So I come from a family of I had 3 biological siblings and 2 siblings that had a different mom, but they also lived with us. So I guess 5 kids in the home, and then my mom and dad.
Okay. And then how did you get adopted, or what's like the...
Sorry, 6 kids.
Yeah.
How did I get adopted?
Your mom's amazing because she was raising your dad's kids as well.
Yeah. So how I got adopted was, I wasn't actually supposed to be adopted because my dad had passed away when I was, I think, 5, but my mom was still alive. And one day I think she went to like cut down trees or do something, and she left me in charge of my sister. I think I was like 6 at this time. My sister's maybe 5, 4 and a half, and she left us home alone, and she told me not to go anywhere. I remember that, but I saw people from my village were like excited. There's a white guy visiting us, and I also wanted to see, what was going on. So I got my sister dressed, and we went to see, why everybody was so excited and who this white guy was. And he turned out to be her dad. Yep, it was her dad. I guess he was there doing humanitarian work. I think he was building wells. He was doing something in the village at the time.
Because what year did you actually get adopted?
It was 97.
So it was like a few years after
96.
us. Yeah.
Yeah, when he was there, probably 96.
And back then, I will say that, especially like in the more rural villages and areas, when white people came, everybody and their mom was outside to be like, "Who is this?" Like, because for some people, they've never seen
this
it,
was before Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, where now like even people in the countryside have access to see white people or all different types of people. Yeah. So that was definitely like, people would gather around just to stare if there was white people visiting. I think that was my first time also seeing a white person, so I was very excited.
How excited? Just kidding.
Excited enough to leave the house when my mom said not to leave. And then that translated into him taking a picture of my sister and I, and
like somehow she got thrown into this like adoption
I'm like,
orphanages.
Sir, I have a family, but I didn't know what was going on, so I just posed for the picture. And he took it back to Utah with him.
He took it to the orphanage, and then I think in Adoptees, kind of like the same orphanage that we learned that we're from. And then somehow
They found
sent
a
it to
family
the
for
family.
us. Yeah. I'm like, what do you mean you found a family?
But you
I didn't know though.
So your mom's gone, you and your sister, you're being nosy. You check it out. Your picture ends up being taken.
Yeah, I just went back home.
As a kid, you have no idea what's about to happen to your life. And then you go... So when did you get to Adoptees, like to the orphanage?
I don't know the time frame. I swear it's maybe a couple weeks later. I don't know how they work so fast.
And then did your mom, like, what did she know what was happening, or?
I don't think so. I don't think she fully was aware of what was happening. And
from different stories that I've heard, it's very common for whoever's in charge of the adoption agencies, like mostly like an Ethiopian person, that's like, oh, we're giving them education. Yeah. They sell them this thing of like, they're just getting the education, they're just getting a better life
about their family. Yes. It's like good for them.
It's a sacrifice you're willing to make, not. And I think a lot of women, especially back then, did not understand what adoption was. That because there's still a lot of families that have not seen their children and have been like, they see us and they're like, have you seen my kid? So that it's a very, it's kind of sad when you really think about it.
And I think they do like prey on vulnerable mothers.
Yeah, right. They do prey on like more vulnerable women.
Yeah, exactly. Because over there, women have, I mean, I don't know if it's any different right now, but especially back then, women have less rights. They have less of a voice in society.
And she's already a single mom raising so many kids. So I think this idea of like, oh, when you're kids, they can change your family dynamic. So I get it.
Yeah, I don't think she would have let us go. I don't think she even know how long we would be gone if she did let us go. I don't know.
And they don't have the concept of what America is as well. So it's almost like, to me, I look at it as if Oprah Winfrey came and was like, I can educate you and show you how to get to my level. You're like, okay, well, I want to take notes. Like, how do we get there? So, so you go and you and your sister, biological sister, and one of your siblings, you're separated from them.
So just me and my sister move to the city, get taken to the city. Let me not say move. We didn't have a choice. Me and my sister are taken to the city by somebody that works at the orphanage. I think one of the directors. So we leave our family behind, our mom, our siblings. So my village had like my whole family there, like my aunts, uncles, everybody. Like we had family, and we were taken away from that, our community, and now we're in an orphanage where we don't know anybody, 4 hours away. Very scary. It's
traumatizing as a kid.
Yeah, very traumatizing. I remember waiting for my mom by the gate for days, because I think if she had told me, like, hey, you're gonna be here for a while, you're going to America, I think I wouldn't have been waiting, you know? So I don't think she fully understood, because why am I waiting for her to come back and get me like it was a play day or something, you know?
And as a kid, I don't think you're able to like process everything that's happening. It's just like, okay, I'm with my sister, this is happening, without like, it's something that hits you when you're older. So my adopted dad finds a family for her, like somebody that they know, and they end up adopting how many kids?
Me, my sister, and 3 other kids from the orphanage, and then a boy from India. So they get us all at the same time. So now I have a new family, and it's 6 kids and our parents.
So they end up adopting 5 Ethiopians, 1 Indian, so 6 kids total.
Yeah.
How many of their own kids do they have?
They had 4.
And they're a lot older?
When I was 7, probably the youngest was like 23.
Okay.
Their youngest. And the
Similar
others
to
were
ours.
30 and up. Yeah.
Okay. So you didn't really like
grow up together.
With them. So now take us to where were you adopted?
Okay, so just like you, I was adopted to a family in Utah. So now it's not just a new family, it's a new environment. And Utah's completely different than a lot of places in the US. And especially Ethiopia. When it comes to the demographics, it's white people, mostly white, majority Mormon. Especially the time I came, maybe it's a little different now. Might be a little more diverse, but at the time I came, it was very much what you imagine Utah to be.
Yep. And how was the experience overall? I know that's a loaded question,
I think people were pretty nice for most of the time in Utah, especially growing up in Provo, where I spent the first 7 years. People were pretty nice. We still would get stared at because we were black, and then 7 years, when I was 14, when we moved to a smaller town that was less diverse, and less accepting of others who were different or different colors.
So did you guys run into like racial issues?
All the time, and I think that was an issue because my parents didn't know how to. They never experienced racism. They didn't know how to deal with it when we experienced it. And after a while, it's like you tell them and nothing gets done, or they just don't understand. So you just learn to, deal with it. And I feel like a lot of times I feel like I raise myself when it comes to things like that, because who do you go to?
In your school, there's no. You guys are the only.
Yeah, exactly. The only
black people.
Black people at school too.
How is your relationship with like your siblings you got along with, right?
Yeah.
How's
We're still very close.
How is the dynamic with your adopted parents?
Pretty good. I think it's hard to. I think when you can't really connect with people, sometimes it can be hard to like have, like, I don't know how to say it. I think they did their best to raise
like an expectation, kind of.
Yeah, I think especially for my mom, maybe it was unfair of me, but I just had expectations that our bond would be like what I had with my birth mom, and it just was not. And I've just had to learn how to forgive that over the years, because I don't think she meant to like be so. Like
the intention was good.
She was kind of cold, and I don't know if that was her intention, but that's how it came off to me. Yeah. And I think I grew up feeling like she didn't love me.
Did she treat her white kids different?
We didn't see them that much for me to really observe, or from what I can remember, maybe. But I can't say. I don't want to put that on her when I didn't really.
No, that's good.
See it.
Do you feel like the dynamic with your family and being in Utah and being different, stuff like that, do you think that how did they connect you guys to Ethiopia? Or was it like you guys are from here, let's, like how my parents like, okay, let's make Jeddah, let's take you here, there. Was there any type of culture connection?
I think with my dad, I think he was proud we were from Ethiopia. He loved to travel and he loved other cultures. I think it's a little more hard for my mom. She was more like, you guys are American now, this is what we're gonna do, this is what we eat, we speak this language. So
what's something big that they changed for you?
My name.
But they didn't change everybody's name?
Yeah, they just changed my name and my sister's name.
And what's your opinion on that?
I think they ended up finding out we had family in the US. Also, they didn't know our mom was alive. They came to get us.
That's a huge piece of the.
Yeah, so they were always, I think, fearful that she might want us back, or our family that they now discovered we had in the U.S. might be, trying to be a part of our lives. So I think that had something to do with them only changing my name and my sister's name.
Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. They adopted you, thinking that you guys were orphans.
Yeah, they came to get us. They thought we were orphans. When they got there, they met our mom, and they were like, "They're not orphans,"
So they met your mom at the orphanage, but they already had done like the paperwork. So
yeah, so everything was finalized, ready to go. They saw our mom was alive. They were under the impression she wasn't. I guess they could have returned us, but.
Returned us
back to her, but everything had already been done. They paid the money. They were under the impression, our rooms were ready in America. Like they couldn't just return us.
So now you're in Utah, and at what point you find like other family members?
Oh yeah, so we had I think uncles, cousins in the U.S. and they were looking to. I think they'd heard from back home, like, hey, Bessa, Turungo are now in America, like try to find them, connect with them. And that's what they tried to do. They came to visit us one time, and after that visit, my dad and mom were like, we didn't like how they were putting their arm around you guys in a picture. I remember we have a picture with them, they just have their arm around us like people do back home, I guess. And they didn't like that, so they were uncomfortable, so they banned them from seeing us again. So from that point after, anytime anybody would call and ask for Bessa, they knew somebody that knew me from Ethiopia, and they would just hang out. Wow. So that was further kind of cutting me off from like who I am, my culture. Wow. Besides changing my name, cutting off contact with our family. What else? Telling us not to speak our language. Yeah.
Wow. No, that's hard.
I think it's really hard because not only did I just leave my family, my culture, like I have no ties to my past self now, so I definitely had a huge identity crisis as I got older.
Especially your name, because your name is like the identity that
Yeah,
you have
and then I used to
all your
feel
history.
embarrassed about my name too, because like, why was it ugly? Like, why don't you want me to be called that anymore?
And it's confusing because they didn't change. If everyone's name was
Yeah.
changed, maybe that's easier to like understand. But it was only you and your sister, so it's almost.
And then we found out earlier last year that the adoption agency they used was doing a lot of fraudulent adoptions where they were falsifying records, like saying people were orphans, kids were orphans when they weren't.
A lot.
And I think that's what happened in my case as well. And I think that's why my name was changed. They didn't want me to be found.
Yeah. At what point did you find your biological siblings that were adopted from somebody else?
Actually, their mom contacted my dad 5 years after me and my sister came. They went to a different family in Utah, my two brothers. And she said, hey, we have the brother of your daughters. I don't know how she found us, but yeah. One day I came home from school, my brothers were visiting, or I came home from a friend's house and they were visiting. I'm like it was weird seeing them again after all those years.
It's like you always knew you had siblings, but you were separated, so it's hard to.
I didn't know if they were alive, didn't know if they were eating, like.
Now you guys have a good relationship. Yeah. What would you say is like one of the biggest misconceptions about adoption?
That it's all positive. I think it can be, but I think we kind of disregard the trauma that the adoptees go through, like you were saying. And just we want to create this fairy tale narrative that's not always true. I think in my case, I feel like I was afforded a better life, but it's like you're not looking at what I had to lose in order to gain that.
Every adoption is a loss, like no matter how you look at it, because that child is losing their family or whatever. Even if they have a great adoption, it still is a loss. And then a lot of people don't realize when they adopt kids that they're adopting the trauma as well, and that's something that's not discussed.
It's not discussed and it's not addressed. Like, I think a lot of adoptees could use therapy.
100%.
Definitely reconnection to their culture as well.
So, with that a little bit. So after we posted the interview with my mom, this was a discussion group we were in. After people watch the videos, there's still comments that say, you're just spoiled, you should be grateful, they saved you. So it's interesting because just that word, people can say anything, but when somebody, I know for me, says you should be grateful, it's very triggering. And we did a little poll and it was very triggering for a lot of adoptees, no matter how great their adoption was. How does that make you feel?
The same as you, is triggering. I don't think anybody should be told how they should feel about any experience, whether that's adoption or some other traumatic event. I think just give people the space to explain tell their story, and then let them tell you if they're grateful or not. You know, we are grateful, but it's like, okay, we went through all these things, so it's very complex. It's not just one word. If you want, I'm grateful, but I'm also all these other things, you know.
But it's almost like the grateful thing is like this thing we have to wear no matter what. Like, we're having a bad day, we went through this, it doesn't matter, you should be grateful because, and it's almost like it's minimizing how we feel. It's also, one thing we were discussing is you have a beautiful baby, and
thank you.
He's so cute. It's the thing that you even said, like, you're like, I would never tell.
And I think that's something we are told by not just people that hear the story and say you should be grateful to your parents, but also our parents also telling us you should be grateful. I did this for you.
Say some of the things
I would never say that.
How you were raised, what were some of the things that they did tell you?
To be grateful.
You should. I know for me it was also, you should be grateful. There's other kids that would have been lucky to have your life, or we saved this, those things. And then I think it actually, from my perspective, I think it adds pressure to us. Like, even if we have shortcomings, it's like, oh, but we were the ones chosen. It puts a lot of pressure rather than just like allowing us to be kids trying to like connect with our families and stuff. Because like we were saying, you said you would never tell your child to be grateful. Like, you're grateful for the blessing that he is. And I think I
chose
found
to have him, you know.
And it's interesting because when parents who can't have kids, they adopt, realized a lot.
About this.
What do they say?
They see the child as a blessing.
Yep.
The child's usually very spoiled, you know.
Yeah, you're a blessing. We couldn't have you. You're a miracle. But it's interesting how the dynamic is a little different. Just from like, we're in this little discussion group, and it's interesting to see the difference and how for all the adoptees, it's always like, well, you should be grateful. It's not. Yeah. It's always over our head.
Exactly. Like, just send me back.
Yeah. So, do you feel like you belonged with your family? Like, did you feel like you had a family?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, how do I? Yeah, I feel like my parents did a good job of giving us a structured life at home. I never had to worry about eating. They made sure we were in school. If we wanted to play a sport, they let us play. But I also had a lot of like trauma from my past. It's like losing my family. It's like, it's not going to replace what I lost, you know? So no matter what they did, I'm going to always feel like I have some level of sadness or grieving I'm still going through, you know?
What's the hardest part about adoption, would you say?
The hardest part about adoption, I would say, is all the parts of you leave behind of who you were before. Even as a child, like, I was 7, but I was still, like, in psychology, isn't that when you're, like, forming your identity, and really, like, those are very important years, and I feel like, just being taken away from all of that. Yeah. And then when you come to a new family, they don't know your past, so everything's forgotten. You don't have anybody to talk about, like, hey, remember when this happened? So there's been so many times where I'm like, did that really happen, or is that my imagination? Because I don't.
It's going from one culture to another.
You're so
culture.
far removed from what you used to know, the place, the language, the food, the people, and now you're in a new place, and you just, I don't know, like, was that real? You know?
And did you express, like, when you guys were homesick, or you missed your mom, or?
I think I wanted to. I would feel bad if I told my mom that I miss my other mom. I'm loyal. I don't want it to feel like I'm your mom now. That's kind of what they said. We're your parents now. So
that's an interesting point, because it's, even though she has another family, it's almost like it's this feeling of like, well, I miss my family in Ethiopia, but I can't express it because I don't. You're worried about her feelings. I don't want her to feel like I'm grateful, or you know.
Yeah, that's really hard.
And that's hard as a kid when you can't. I feel like a lot of it is when you can't process your feelings, and then you just have to hold it in. It comes, it will come out.
Makes me sad.
What would you? But what's your mom? What's your relationship with the biological mom?
What is it now?
No, like, give us a little something, like, what's your biggest memory? I
think she was good at taking care of the home.
Is she still alive? And how did you find out? When did she pass away?
My mom?
Yeah, your biological mom.
When I was in college. What do you mean?
No,
that one. Oh, I think on the white one.
No, your biological.
Oh, so I found out my biological mom passed away when I was like a year after I came, I think. My parents just took me and my sister to our room and said, we found out your mom passed away. And that was the hardest day. Even though I couldn't, again, I was trying to show, like, you're my parents now. I couldn't really show a lot of emotion, but I feel like that's when I started feeling very depressed. I just remember everything went black that day. I'm sure I was depressed even before that, you know, but I just have a memory of that day. Like, because I think I just had hopes I'll see.
No, it's this very similar, like, literally similar story for me too, because I think there's this hope I know that I had where I'm like, oh, my mom's gonna come to America and she's gonna do this, we're gonna do this together, and then it's almost like your lifeline. Like, even though your experience can be great or whatever, it's just still is your mom. Like, no one can take that away. And so I think when they're not there, it's almost like, well, what's the point? Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. Did they give you space to mourn, or was it just more like, she's not there, that's it?
They don't know her. Just like that, just like what I was saying about, like, the connection to your past. They don't know. They don't really, I don't want to say care, but it's like, you're here now, you're our kid, this is our life now, you know?
Do you feel like the biological family is often forgotten? in adoption.
Yeah. I had a whole family back home that I now don't have any connection to, you know.
No. Now that you're a mother to...
I think that's what made me even more sad.
Because does it resonate even more now that you're a mother? And how has like your opinion about adoption shifted?
I don't think it shifted because I was never pro-adoption.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't change. I think it just makes me understand how hard it would be. Just, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Not you keeping the camera rolling. Don't they cut it off in professional productions?
No, because this is authentic. We keep it authentic.
Yeah. I don't think it's changed. If anything, it just... yeah, it's too much change for a child to like lose a family, then lose their identity and their culture and move to a different country all at once. So I'm not pro-adoption. I think we should put funding into caring for kids who don't have parents or giving it to their aunts and uncles, grandparents, so they can stay in their family. I think that's what we should do.
I think that helps the identity a lot. Yeah,
I agree, because that's a big thing in a lot of adoptees where they lose their identity, which is, who are you without that, you know?
I know, since we're already on, I know I've already made you emotional about your mom, but if there was one thing you wish you could see or wish you could say to her, what do you think? What would it be?
I guess I will see her again.
Yeah, you will.
But if I could see her, just thanks and sorry for what happened to her.
Yeah.
What would you say to yours? Is it okay?
I think for mine, I have moments where I just get super emotional because, I do because
our moms, you know.
Yeah, because it's this, like my older sister has, I have 2 nephews that are just like beautiful, and I think it's this like thing of like, I wish she could see our lives now, and I know she would be proud, and I think I wish that, I just want her to see her grandbabies. Like my nephews are like the most amazing thing, and I think having a grandma that's alive, I know that my grandma has a lot of guilt, and she always says that, she says like, your mom should be the one here, I shouldn't be here, you know?
That's so sad.
And so I know that, and it's hard to like grasp when they're so young and they have like so much life still, you know what I mean? So I think it's just like, yeah, that's a price, like I would do anything to have like another moment with my mom, you know? And it's almost like, it's not anger, maybe through therapy I learned part of it was anger I had, in the sense of like the missed times, because as a kid, no one's thinking like, oh, every moment counts, let me call my mom, I'm gonna lose her. Like as a child, you just think you have your parents forever, you know? And so when that happens, it's almost like, wait, like I need you now, and I think that's the hardest part. Like,
so sad. I was having that thought like a couple of nights ago too with my baby. I'm like, sad, like you're my mom's grandson. Like, I'm happy her legacy gets to keep living on, you know.
But we want them. Yeah, it's hard.
Exactly.
We will be with them.
And it's crazy when I went back to Ethiopia and I saw her grave or whatever. And I did the math and I'm like, if she passed away when she's 39.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
My mom, I've already outlived my mom.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it feels like to me it feels like they did so much more. Like my mom had 3 kids. She was the oldest, so she took care of the family. She worked, and like I'm talking labor work, like physical things that I'm like, I complain about lifting one little thing, you know? So I'm just like, I feel like mentally, like she's just so much stronger, and it's crazy to think I've outlived her already.
You're very
that's
strong
hard
too. The weights you carry are just different.
Yeah, it's true. But I always think like people back home, they're different. They're built different.
Yeah, so. I agree. Like it's like they have to survive. You have to be strong.
Yep. I was gonna say, you did go back to Ethiopia with your adopted family. How many times did they take you guys back?
One time.
Oh, that was just once.
Why did you go back?
We went a few times.
Yeah, I only went one time.
Well, my parents had the organization.
I went to my village for 20 minutes.
That was it.
I think so.
And what was that? Did that help your guys' connection to Ethiopia, or was it just?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a very pivotal time in my growth. I was 16, very struggling with identity. So when I came back from that visit, I felt more like strong in my identity for sure. It's like, oh, I don't need to try to be black or white. I'm Ethiopian.
Yes.
And then over time, I'm like, okay, I'm not like Ethiopian like I'm supposed to be. I'm not black how I'm supposed to be. I'm like, but I'm okay as I am. Like, this is me. Like, I don't need to be anything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's hard.
This is just who I am. You know?
It's hard to get there too.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in a predominantly white community. You're not. I mean, you're black, but you're not like American black. You have like a whole different identity from a different country. So
and people try to tell you who you should be and why you don't behave a certain way even though you're this. You know? So you just have to get to that point where you're like, this is who I am. This is how I behave. Nobody else has my story or what I've been through. Yeah. But it's a very comfortable place.
Good.
Because you decide who you are and how you.
I feel like you've done a lot of self-work, which I really appreciate, and I think that because there's some kids that are just content with their adoption, they're content with like whatever relationship they don't have with their biological family, they're okay with, and I think that's fine. But I think what I admire about you is that you've gotten to the space where you're like, no, not only do I want to know more, what can I do to go back and make changes, and what can I, because I think you're very purposeful, and I appreciate that about you. So even her company, she has like a teeth whitening company, she has a lot of things she does. She's a little entrepreneur. But it's always like, okay, women-based, small business, black-owned, like let's support people that like we can give back as well, you know? So I think, tell us something that you want to do for even Africa.
I think creating economic opportunity for people there is really what we need to do. It's not giving handouts or, I mean, donations are good, whatever, but it's not like long-term sustainability, and I think that's what we need to do over there. And education, I would definitely love to do anything in like agriculture or education over there. I know you have your nonprofit and footprints, yes. So something like that. I know that was more geared towards education, right?
Well, it's just geared towards people. The vision is just people as far as getting back to their roots.
Oh, yes. Oops.
Which that is something that another thing we really are working on right now is putting together an adoptee homecoming. Yes. And so if you know somebody that's adopted or you're adopted, definitely like let us know, because we're working on putting together a little community so we can put together some events for that. Yeah. What type of footprints?
Before going back to Ethiopia, we can also do a meet and greet type of thing in Washington, D.C.
Oh, yes.
Like bring them all here.
That's actually really great.
For like 3 days, like a weekend retreat type of thing.
That's actually...
And that we can do that like sooner than waiting Ethiopia. To go to Ethiopia.
Guys, we need sponsors.
We need to find a hotel.
That would actually...
do panels and things like that.
No.
There's so many people out here from Ethiopia that we can have.
There's so many, and I think...
Marcus Cooks.
Yep.
You can come be one of the panel people.
No, for real. There's a lot of people.
Lots of people.
There's definitely a lot of people. We have a big community, but I also think that there's a lot of Ethiopians, even who watched my mom's interview, that have reached out to me, where adoption is like so much part of Ethiopia. It's like a known thing, but people don't really know the adoption stories. So I think it's almost like you feel connected to these because you're like, they're your people, you know. You're like, oh my gosh, what can I do to help? So I love that idea. I think that's coming.
And did you feel accepted by other Ethiopians? Do you feel accepted by other Ethiopians when you tell them you're adopted?
That's a great question. Right. So for me, I didn't really know I just didn't know what Ethiopia was, aside from my siblings and the little things that we held on to. And then like the knowing, because we forgot the language, so it's like the 3 words like, oh, Danish, and then it wasn't until and I never understood how my dad could pick out Ethiopians or East Africans. I'm like, how do you know? Yeah. And how does everyone know that I'm Ethiopian? Like, it drove me crazy. And so then for me, it was in 2012, I booked a one-way ticket to Ethiopia. And that was a reality check. I was like, oh my gosh, I for the first time, I loved that I fit in. No one's asking questions. Everyone assumed so that part of it, I was like, oh my gosh, I just felt like I'm where I need to be. But as soon as I opened my mouth and people talked to me, I felt so stupid. I was just like, I didn't know how to count the money. When taking taxis, I'm like watching people like to see, and then they're talking to you and they're like, you don't speak Amharic? So I got a lot of like negative feedback because they're like, oh, you're spoiled, you're pretending, you have an accent. And I'm just like, trust me, I'm not pretending. I would do anything to like understand. So I started taking classes, and in that class, I remember the owner of the school was like, your third culture. She's like, so you're never gonna fit in Ethiopia. You're never gonna fit in America because you're too American for Ethiopia, too Ethiopian for America. And I was like, that's how I feel. Because in Utah, it's like they see me as just the token black friend or whatever, you know. In Ethiopia, they're like, oh, I'm never gonna be able to get rid of this accent, or never say never, but you know.
You didn't grow up having the same cultural experiences as them.
I don't know the traditions. I don't know the there's so much I lost that even though predominantly now I'm around Habeshas, it's still, you can tell I don't belong fully. So no, it sucks. It 100%. Like I belong in the sense, like I know my friends, like I love them, whatever, but when I still don't know like the rules of the certain things that they do, like the Krishna. I'm like, I don't know.
What do we wear?
I don't know. What do you do? What does he say? And it gets overwhelming when people speak to you because I'm just like, I don't understand. And then I want. How about you?
That's so sad. I feel accepted. I just tell them I don't speak, so don't worry about it. And then I just tell them I'm adopted. They're most like, oh, okay. If I say I don't speak Amharic, oh, you should learn. But I don't.
One thing they said is, oh, my kid. They came to America when I was 7 too, and I'm like, were they raised in a white family
in Utah?
And then they're more understanding, and I feel like they become more understanding because there's more and more adoptees.
They feel bad.
They're really like kind, warm people.
Exactly. I feel like some cultures might not be as accepting as to adoptees.
They'll be like, come over, I'll teach you.
And as soon as they find out you're one of them, like, come over, let's eat injera, be friends. So I'm thankful to be from a culture who doesn't like isolate.
But it's kind of exciting, especially in the last few years, how many connections we've had with other adoptees, and I'm genuinely excited to see what we can do with that.
Me too. It's like a community within a community with a shared story. So cool.
With everyone having such like different experiences, because I always say it's always what my goal is for people to, when they're listening to this, it's not to paint adoption as bad or this, or it's just more like experiences for people to listen and be like, that's interesting. She had a different experience, and I want people to have different perspectives on things. It's not black and white.
Exactly.
And you've said this before, like two things can be true at once. Do you want to, is there anything else you want to add?
For the people back home watching on YouTube, because there's so many of them, how did they find you?
I don't know.
I just don't think it matters what tribe we're from.
Yes.
I grew up like just believing we're all Ethiopians, and even now as an adult, that's how I view us, like a strong country with beautiful people, beautiful culture. I don't like the weird division stuff.
Yes, I agree.
And I think us growing up outside of that,
it makes it a little challenging.
But also it's good to like view things with an open mind, because when you grow up in that, you're like, oh, I'm this, and sticking to your own or whatever. You know,
that's actually an excellent point, because there's, for people who might not know, there's obviously tribalism happening in Ethiopia, and it's hard because for us, we're just trying to connect to Ethiopia. We just want, like, it's not about the different tribes, right? And so it makes it more challenging when they're like, oh, but what tribe are you from? What tribe? Like, we're just like, we're just trying to go to the country. We just need something before we have this divide. And I do think that there's beauty in all of what makes Ethiopia beautiful is the different cultures within it, and I think there's a way to still be proud of your ethnic tribe, celebrate it, whatever, but we have to be able to like coexist and just like love one another in that sense. So
exactly.
Anything else? That was a good point.
No, not really. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Wait, one more question. So what type of footprints would you like to be known for or leave?
Good question. I would like to be known for being an entrepreneur, philanthropist. I think someone who follows God. Notice I didn't say religion, I said God. I've been a great mother.
Amazing friend you are.
Yes, thank you. I used to always like put pressure on myself, like you said, because I was saved from dying. I wasn't sick, I was just hungry. I always felt this pressure that I have to do more than most people. You know, I have to, because I was saved from poverty. So I think I've toned that down. I don't put that much pressure on myself. Whatever path God wants me to follow, or whatever I just try to let God guide me, you know? So that takes the pressure off. We're all created for a reason. I feel like a purpose. So whether you search for that purpose or whatever, you're gonna be led to it, and I just try to just be open to wherever I'm led.
I love that.
And I
was gonna add one more thing. Do you have any advice for other adoptees or parents who adopted, or anyone in that community?
Do I have? I think for the adoptees, because I was also once somebody who was struggling with my identity and just trying to figure out like who I am and where I belong. I think make sure you do this self-work, because the longer you are confused and just roaming around this world without knowing who you are, and that doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm from this country. It's knowing who you are internally. You know what I'm saying? Like what you stand for. Just the longer you take to get there, the harder your life will be. I think just knowing who you are will give you a solid foundation for you to go off and branch off and do great things in this world. So I would just encourage all adoptees to try to find who they are.
I love that.
Whether that's connecting to your roots or back to yourself. Like,
once you know who you are, like what you stand for, there's like no one else can tell you anything.
Exactly.
So.
And it's such a safe place to be. And for the parents, make sure before you adopt children, you know what you're, getting into. Don't do it because you want to do something nice. Make sure you know like how it's going to impact the child, and you understand their culture. But also a lot of countries are now stopping international transracial adoption. Is that what it's called? So I think now it's like those that were affected and impacted have a lot of healing to do, but at least it's stopped now from putting more people through that trauma. It's like a good thing, but it's also not a good thing. It's
for the kids that actually like real orphans that actually need a family. That's unfortunate, but but
they still have to deal with their identity issues too. I just don't know if taking kids away from their country of origin, where their families have lived for generations and generations, is like the best thing. Is there other ways we can help orphans without removing them from their country? They don't do that in America. I mean, not that the foster care system is good, but
I do think it's important for, say, whether it's China or Ethiopia or whatever, for people to help their own people. It's like, instead of expecting like Americans or other countries to come in and like save your kids, I feel like we have to be able to help our own people. I think in general everyone can do better to give love for children. So
exactly. Keep
this is, do you want to read this quote that we both love?
There is no greater agony than bearing... Is this class? There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. Maya Angelou.
We're going to end it with that quote because, there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. So thank you for telling your story.
Thank you for letting me, and thank you for sharing yours.
And I'm just excited for this little new chapter and see what we can do. So Bessa, I'll link her social media and stuff like that. Thanks, friends.
Thank you.
Guys, tune in, follow, subscribe, the whole shebang.
Support our podcast. She's the best.
She's the best. So support her businesses. All right, thank you guys. Bye.